I think we'll be getting started any moment. Looks like Zach's almost ready there.
Hi, everybody. My name is Zachary Grant. I'm the director of the Church of the Holy Trinity. I'm a settler here on Turtle Island. We are gathered here today to mark the month of March at Toronto's Homeless Memorial. We begin with acknowledging this land, this territory, the spirits of this place. We give thanks to the Mississauga Nation, the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Nation, the traditional keepers and treaty holders of this territory. We thank all of our family members who inhabit Trinity Square and our surroundings. And we thank all of the Indigenous peoples who come and give support and leadership to our Toronto Homeless Memorial. We recognize the ongoing legacy of colonization and displacement that's encouraging more names to be added to this memorial. And we both pay our respects and our thanks, and we recognize that there's much more to do in our work to end the colonial legacy here on Turtle Island. We also acknowledge the transatlantic slave trade, which has brought countless African, Caribbean, and Black people to Turtle Island against their will. We recognize the trauma that's caused those communities, and we again commit ourselves to the work that needs to be done to restore our communities and our families. We also want to pay respect to all of our family members who are in the carceral system, in our detention centers, jails, and prisons across Turtle Island, a marker of the architecture of that colonial legacy and the consequences that it causes our communities, the consequences of unspoken and undealt with hurt that continues to, again, reinforce the need for public acts like this of both prayer and remembrance, but also of recommitting to survival and to change. So today I will welcome any guests. We're on Zoom today, and we'll hear about the order of service right after we have an opening song from Lee Kern honoring those who have passed.
Somebody on Facebook.
afternoon. Thank you, Debbie and Lee and Tom for that song. And thank you, Zach, for the land acknowledgement. We meet here each month on the second Tuesday of the month at noon to grieve, to mourn, to acknowledge the lives of those who die in our city without housing. Today we have some family of at least one of the people that died, so we want to make sure to have space for that today. So I'm going to read the names that we've added to the memorial, that we added to the memorial today, and we'll have a moment of silence, but I want to make sure to have space for people to tell stories if they'd like to about those who have passed. We also meet here to say that this is not okay, that this is happening in our city. It's unjust, inhumane, and it keeps getting worse. Those in power, the city government, provincial government, and the federal government keep turning their back, keep shoveling profits to those with lots of wealth, while more and more people are in crisis and suffer without housing. So today, I'm gonna say the names, and then we'll have a moment, some time for people to come up and say some words. And then after that, I'll say the names again, and we'll have a moment of silence. So the city recently updated their statistics on shelter deaths. And there's a lot of people that died in the shelter system already this year, more than at any other time. So in January, Jane Doe died in January. Jane Doe in January. A Jane Doe in January. A John Doe in January. A John Doe in January. A John Doe in January. And a John Doe in January. On February 4, Philip, known as Miami, Michael Sweet, died. Also in February, Jeremy, who was staying at the Bond Shelter Hotel, died. Slim, his name Oliver Smith, died on February 14. Gordon died while sleeping outside near Power Street on February 17. Johnny Findley, also known as Long Hair, died on February 23rd. Sean Boyd died on February 24 at St. James Park. Also in February in the shelter system, John Doe died. John Doe in February, and John Doe in February. Also, I want to acknowledge Kyle B., who was known to the meeting place while he had housing, was known to many people in the community. I just want to acknowledge his name. So now we're going to have some time for if anybody wants to come up and say a word about. Joanna Rodenizer? Joanne, thank you. Do you know when Joanne passed?
17.
February 17th? Died on February 17th. Thank you, Kevin. Debbie, would you like to say anything about Johnny to start? Bit of a straw.
My husband died on the streets. Had a memorial for him last week. I just wanted to speak out on the night that they picked. That's my last phone call from John. John was very loyal to me. He always called me. every single day. Sometimes I got 3, 4, 5 phone calls. We went to Peter Street, and he called me at 8:15. We got to talk for about 20 minutes. And the procedure at Peter Street is, as soon as they give you a shelter, they want you out. And I get it because of COVID. I get all the rules. I get it. He was just begging them on the phone, please just give me a minute to talk to my wife. Phones were very hard to come by with COVID going on. Didn't have any money to use the payphone. He begged them 3 times, please just give me a minute to talk to my wife. All I know is my truth. All I know is what I heard on the phone, because Peter Street is hiding behind the Privacy Act. They won't tell me anything. I'm his wife. I'm legally married to him. We had circumstances where the cards that we were dealt were crap, but we were trying to do our best. But all I heard was them physically grabbing him and shoving him out the door. And they said to him, you're not using the phone. You're using the phone as an excuse just to stay in here. And I was screaming on the other end. He's talking to somebody. He's talking to somebody. Okay, I let it go. He had a shelter. He was going to Scarborough. They kicked him out. A good Samaritan 5 minutes later found him on the corner. He had had a heart attack. They brought him into Peter Street. This is all I know. This is just what I'm putting together because everybody seems to be hiding behind the Privacy Act. They won't tell me anything. They brought him back in and revived him there. I called Peter Street. I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know what happened from A to B when he got to the hospital. Nope, they wouldn't tell me. They told me I needed to call 52 Division and try to get around the Privacy Act. I called 52 Division. That was the worst phone call that I ever had to make in my life. They actually rejoiced on the other end that my husband had died. I had to call them back and tell them he didn't die. They revived him on Peter Street. Oh, if you want to put in a claim against Peter Street, you have to call the city. And they hung up on me. So that was my call with with 52 Division. I look back on the scenario now, and I have to give thanks for the little things that happened. If Johnny hadn't have checked in that night and gotten a shelter, would he be a Jane Doe? Would he be a John Doe? When the paramedics come, would Peter Street have said, I don't know him? The doctor that was working on him, she was the one that tracked me down. She looked through all of his stuff, and apparently the hospitals have a Privacy Act where they can't talk to each other. Some hospitals are in communication with each other, and luckily just 2 weeks before I had tried to get Johnny into CAMH. So that's how they knew that my name and him, that we were together. Peter Street knew. I have checked into Peter Street with my husband and gotten shelters before. Peter Street knew that he was on the phone with me. Why couldn't Peter Street call me and tell me that they had taken him to the hospital? Why did I have to find out the next day at noon? And the doctor this was her last phone call that she was going to make. She was going to call it quits. Johnny would have died by himself if it wasn't for that doctor. Peter Street knew who I am. They knew we were together. Where is the compassion at Peter Street? Why do the guys hate to go there? Peter Street should have the most intimate relationship with these guys. They're finding housing for these guys. They're getting them off the street. They should know their name. They should know that this guy's a father, that this guy, they're just doing their job there. It's like cattle, bring them in and get them out. I hope that what I had in my heart has come across, but that's my truth. That's all I know. That's all I know. Maybe Peter Street put a towel under his head. Maybe they wiped the throw up from his face when he was throwing up. I don't know. I would like to know that. Why are they hiding behind this Privacy Act? Why are they not what are they trying to hide? I don't get it. I don't understand. But I am grateful that Johnny did check in there and that he wasn't not on the list as a John Doe, and that he didn't die alone. He died with his friends around him, and I am grateful for that. I'm grateful for Trinity because, listen, if it wasn't for Trinity and Zach and Lee, I would have done this all by myself, all alone. Yeah, and it just pisses me off that Peter Street just basically, as soon as he was out the door, they wiped their hands. Our job is done. I don't get it. I don't get it. When you go into social work, it should be a calling. And should not be a paycheck. It should be a calling. And I don't see it. I don't see it down there at Peter Street. I'm sorry just to focus on Peter Street, but this is where it happened. And that's my truth. That's what I know right now. I could be wrong, but that's all I know. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
I just wanted to say a few words about my friend, Joanne, Jojo. She was an awesomely special lady. For years, I've been trying. Can you hold one second? She was an awesome and special lady. When I came down here to run for a member of federal parliament in Toronto Centre back in November, I came down and the first one I saw in the corner, I'd done this in Sherbourne, was Joanne. And she just gave me the big hug like we normally do. And I says, well, Joanne, I got to get 25 signatures of eligible voters in the riding to get on the ballot. And I've got this much hours to do it. She says, give me the paper. And all she did was she took the paper, took the clipboard, and she started going around Sherbourne and Dundas. And I was able to make nomination to run for member of federal parliament. I have known Joanne for years through social media. She always likes my posts. She's always supportive and everything. Whenever I had something for senior services, she always called me, want to know what she can do. And I always said, Joanne, all you got to do is take care of yourself and take care of others. And when I saw her downtown a few times, all she says was, Kevin, you know, these are my family, right? These are my family. These are my people. I said, Joanne, I got a room in Scarborough for you whenever you're ready. And, you know, when I saw her in November, she was just so awesome. So I'm going to go smoke like I do smoke weed, and I needed rolling papers. So I asked Joanne, I said, Joanne, you have papers? She says, no. I said, well, can you get me some? And I was going into my pocket, and I knew this. I had two toonie and a loony. But then something told me, no, I pull out a 20, and I give it to her. And you know, Sherbourne and Dundas is the largest drug addict in the area. So next thing I know, Joanne, I looked around, and there was Joanne with $17 and change and the papers. And I just looked at her then, and I just says, thank you. She says, why? I says, well, you know, it's just, she says, Kevin, you got change in your pocket, don't you? I says, how do you know that? Because I know, okay? She said, remember one thing though, you know, you can say anything you want about me, but when it comes to trust and when it comes about with money, that's something you can always trust me with. And she showed that day. And I miss her dearly. I hurt a lot. And that's why I've done such a promotion trying to get this thing, rolling, because people should not die like Joanne. But there was one saying on her memorial page that says Joanne Rathon so and so. It says a sister, missed by her sister, her other sister, her niece, her nephews, her cousins, and her mom has passed, but missed by the whole family. And that's the message I want to send to the people of the city of Toronto and to all the elected officials who I did invite. I sent an email to all councillors, all MPs, the mayor, the premier, and the prime minister, and I don't see none of them here. But I want them to realize that the homeless memorial is not about a bunch of bums, a bunch of drug addicts, a bunch of alcoholics. It's about your childhood friend. It's about your brother. It's about your sister. It's about your niece. It's about your nephew. It's about your next door neighbor. It's about someone's parents. It's about your mother. It's about your child. It's about all of us. And we're all one family, humanity. So on April 13th, again, as I said, on February 9th, we will be inviting Mayor John Tory. This will be the 42nd straight month. We will fill out the invitation to invite you to the Toronto Homeless Memorial. We're inviting Premier Doug Ford, because if you're serious about the coronavirus and people dying, we cannot see the virus, but we can see the people who are homeless in the streets of Toronto. And with the large amount of vacant property and the large amount of businesses, there is no excuse why the province of Ontario cannot house every single homeless that require housing. Now, I'm running for the mayor's job, and I guarantee within the first year of being mayor, I will house every single resident of this city that needs housing. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, I had invited you a year ago. You sent me a letter with apologies that you could not make it, but you will try to make it again. So Prime Minister Trudeau, on April 13th, we're inviting you to the Toronto Homeless Memorial at the Church of the Holy Trinity at the Toronto Eaton Center, because the simple message is a life is too precious to leave to go hungry and homeless in the streets of Toronto. We thank Greg, Zach, and the great singing guy over there. We also have some new support from Karen Wild, who's an excellent singer, and she's going to be running for provincial member of parliament in Beaches, East York. She went through an atrocious situation with dealing with helping a senior who was 80 years old, who had to drink out of a cup full of cockroaches. So remember, it is not about the virus that's the problem in the city of Toronto and in Ontario. It is the neglect of the people and their needs, and we're going to stop that neglect. Now, in closing, I just want to, if you see tears coming to my eyes, it's because Karen's death, listening to this lady and what I experienced in the past 2 days. Aside, you'll see a thing about a city worker attacking me for putting up a sign that says Toronto Homeless Memorial, Church of the Holy Trinity, Toronto Eaton Center. I have to have people watching out for city workers to remove the signs. And when someone called me that said they were removing it, I ran across the street and the guy threatened to attack me. So I hired another starving artist named Stacy, and he designed 4 big signs you'll find in our social media page or on the Holy Trinity. 4 signs that did not encompass the sidewalk, did not impede the public's right of way, and it was an attempt to save people's lives. And we put the first sign by a desk where there was a big load of dog poo in a plastic bag. We put the other side by a mailbox where there's a garbage can full of garbage all overflowing. And the other side in the center of the road that was full of all this busted glass. And at 11 a.m. this morning, when I passed by, the dog poo remained, the garbage remained, all the filth remained, the busted glass remained. The only thing that was removed was the 3 signs that announced the Toronto Homeless Memorial. So if you did it this morning, couldn't you wait till the memorial had finished and remove it at 12:30? We thank you guys. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased at the attendance today. And I hope that we can make it 2-3 times more on April 13th. Invite your friends. We will follow whatever regulations to see that everyone is safe, but we need to address the homeless issue in Toronto this summertime. God bless.
You want to say anything? No, no. It's your turn.
I don't really want one. My name is Gwen. Some people call me Joker. I don't know why I'm here. Some of those people even I could go to this boyfriend. I don't want to be on the street. I don't want anybody kicking me on the street. To flag it on you wherever I am, wherever I are. Any of you could be on the street. Like I did that first. Look at that. I think I would get the building at we're on the Kevin, what else is there to do? What are we supposed to do?
Let's address the issue as we
What issue? What else are we supposed to do?
talk about loving everyone.
I do. I love you all. This nuts. Yes, thank God. You went to Dutch. You went to John. You're still learning him.
But we're here today.
You went to Justin. No, you just what is what do you want? So Justin, what else there to do? Even if we don't know what to do with mental illness, I don't know. I don't know. Kevin knows you know what you're doing. I'm doing what you're doing, and I don't know what else there is for me to do. What else is there for me to do? Just stop wasting things.
Jeff, go for it. Oh, whoever will.
Sorry. Oh, my name.
Just for the, yeah. Okay, here we go. Just for the.
Hello, my name's Tom. It's pretty sad to me that list I heard of all these people that passed away on the street. I think I didn't know 3 of them. I knew almost every one of that list. I'm here to support anybody who needs it, but I'm more here for Debbie. Johnny was a good friend of mine, 30 years. I found out after it was too late, like I'm sure we all did. I'm homeless myself, have been for 17 years, dealing with this shit every day. Excuse my language. I don't know what else to say except, like I said, I came mostly to support Debbie. It's just sad. I'm in a shelter right now myself. I've had 9 friends of mine who are homeless die in the last 2 months. 3 from COVID, 6 from alcohol or drug related, but still they're on the street homeless and nobody wants to help. Something needs to be done about this, and I'm going to be part of that because I think this is bullshit and something needs to be done immediately. Thank you.
If Allison could come up and then Doug, and then we'll, I'll read the names and we'll have a moment of silence.
Just want to speak about Slim and Joanne, both of whom were regular members of the All Saints Church Community Center community. We saw them almost every day, probably until relatively recently. Slim was someone who was extremely grateful. You know, whatever happened, if there was an incident in the drop-in, he would always apologize and express gratitude to our staff. And I understand that during the Moss Park pop-up overdose prevention site, he was always helpful picking up garbage and helping the volunteers. And perhaps most importantly, he was very devoted to Angie, his partner. I've lost count of how many years they were together. Very devoted couple. And Joanne, I'll tell two little stories about Joanne. Our office administrator was remembering the last time she saw her, and there was traffic backed up on Dundas Street, and all the cars were honking, and our administrator couldn't figure out why. And then she saw Joanne in the middle of the street, and she was trying to rescue a bird, trying to put it in a cardboard box. And that was just the kind of person Joanne was. She was always looking out for people who were vulnerable. There was another time in our drop-in where I was trying to console someone who was crying. She'd been bullied, I think, by a few people. I'd never seen her before. And Joanne just sort of quietly went by and pushed a cigarette across the table. Just these little gestures that mean so much. We loved her. And we loved Slim and Jeremy and all the community. So it's a big loss. Amen.
My name is Doug Johnson Hatlam from Sanctuary, and I started with the Homeless Memorial and collecting the names and pass that on to my colleagues. I'm working at it again now, and I just want to say a word about 2 or 3 of the people being put on the list today, but also a word about how dire the circumstances are right now, and give a little bit, just a brief thing about 3 different ways that names are collected that show that numbers are skyrocketing. The city of Toronto, the smallest list is the city of Toronto keeps a list and puts out information, though without names, on people who have died in shelters. It took a lot of work to get them to make this, a lot of lobbying by the Homeless Memorial to get them to make it at all public. They've been doing this. This is now their 15th year of collecting the names, and that information is now all online again without the names. But in 2019, they put 48 names on that list of people who had died related to the shelters. Last year, it went up by more than 50% to 74 names. 74 names when the previous record had been 48. And in January and February last year, towards those 74 names, there were 13 names, or 13 people, Jane and John Does, on that list. This year, there were 18 already. So an increase of 5 over our record-breaking number in 2020. This is a real crisis. It's a real emergency. This Homeless Memorial was started by Bonnie Briggs and people at the Toronto Disaster Relief Committee. Homelessness in Toronto remains a disaster, and it's getting worse. That's the smallest of the list. In 2019, that's the last year we have full records from all 3 places. The Homeless Memorial put 65 names on the list. In addition to the 48, including Jane Does and John Does, we knew of another 17 names that weren't listed by the city. They died outdoors or in hospitals after coming from outdoors, not having a place to stay either in the shelter system or anywhere else. But that same year, I want to note, Toronto Public Health, which keeps an even broader list that includes all people with no fixed address who die in Toronto, it was 128 names, 128. We don't have the full record yet for 2020 for Toronto Public Health list, but we're heading towards a day when there will have been 150 people die in this city without homes. One of the richest countries, one of the richest cities in one of the richest countries in the world. It's completely unacceptable. And with that in mind, I want to talk very briefly about 3 people who have died. I have spoken with the family, with some of the one family member who spoke to others to make sure that we could put Philip Michael Sweet on this list. He was also known as Miami. I'm going to read just a paragraph from his obituary as written by his family. Peacefully surrounded by extended family at Toronto Western Hospital after a brief illness, dearly beloved son of the late Catherine and Michael, who was married to Mary. Philip will be dearly missed by his brother Thayer, married to Tasha, and sister Corinne, the late Gerbil. and his niece Jasmine. Philip will be mourned by extended family in the USA, Canada, Scotland, and Australia. He will be lovingly remembered by his many friends in Florida, Ohio, Toronto, and Mississauga, especially by Katie, Marisha, and Nura. Philip's family extend their gratitude to the ICU team at Toronto Western for their excellent care. There were 3 places listed for donations, including NAMI Res and Toronto Indigenous Harm Reduction, where I'm told that he sometimes made use of those services, but wasn't at his death. Miami was a nickname he was known by, and he often was seen in the Yorkville area as well. I want to say a word as well about Gordon. We don't know his last name yet. He died in the fire on Ash Wednesday at Power Street. The city has not been forthcoming with his name. The fire department has not given the cause of death, even though we've heard serious allegations that it may have been intentionally set. Police have not done a serious investigation. Instead, the city's used it in a politicized way, putting out a press release, at the same time going after the builder of some of the tiny shelters we see around Toronto, and blaming that man for the death instead of blaming themselves and other levels of government who should be held responsible. A country this rich could have no homelessness. Zero homelessness should be the goal. And instead, we get the city politicizing events like Gordon's death, when we know there were 18 deaths in shelters in January and February, including 1 death by fire. Sasha Gray, who we put on the memorial last week, died January 1st. So the idea of politicizing Gordon's death and not even releasing his name or treating him with dignity is just morally reprehensible. The worst kind of morally reprehensible. Finally, I just want to say that while I only met him in passing, Sean Boyd was well known to many of my colleagues at Sanctuary. The night after he died, we had a drop-in and people just streamed in, finding out about his death, weeping. He's been on the streets for decades, was known to have many, many friends, to be kind to many people. He was excited about having just moved into a tiny shelter, and was hopeful that he would get housing soon. He was on a list to get housing. There were arrangements being made for recovery for him with one of my colleagues, and so it's hit the community very hard. He always had a big bright smile on his face, even though he'd been on the streets for decades. People thought he was extremely young. He had a very bright face, bright smile, and will be missed dearly by Sanctuary and people throughout the downtown.
I'm going to read the names and then we'll have a moment of silence. Jane Doe, Jane Doe, Jane Doe, John Doe, John Doe, John Doe, John Doe, John Doe, Philip, Miami, Michael Sweet, Jeremy, Oliver Smith, also known as Slim, Gordon, Johnny Finley, also known as Longhair, Sean Boyd, John Doe, John Doe, John Doe, and Joanne, or Jojo. A moment of silence. May each of them rest in power. I'd like to ask Tom to come up and play us a song. Actually, and then Lee's gonna come and do a
And
song.
there's one more musician.
We'll have three pieces of music, and that will be the end.
It was Doug, was it? Yeah, you said up to 150 deaths possibly in the last year. I don't know how that compares to the murder statistics, but for the amount of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars being spent to fight crime, and taking a look at public safety, and then respecting the privacy, even though that becomes, a type of hiding what is really going on. These are things that questions to be asked. Okay, hi everybody. I was thinking of doing a song, but I've decided to do a different one. So we'll just see how this goes. Crow sat perched up in a tree, cawing to me, caw, caw, caw. Said, I know what you're going through. Hey, look at me. I can fly everywhere. I see what there is to see. Destruction of the habitat affects you as well as me. Down, grounded all within Mother Earth, down. Connected deeply to the roots within us, down. Falling upward to other planets. Beauty of the sky and waves dancing on the shore. Open up the heart and mind to wanting to explore the depths of all creation to be felt forevermore. Passing intellectual understanding, can't buy it in a store. No, you can't. Down, grounded all within Mother Earth, down. Connected deeply to the roots within us, down. Falling upward to other planets. They send a probe to Mars looking for evidence of life. How many species go extinct here because of all the strife engendered by the killing spree, psychotically rife with the domination and control of all terrestrial life? You can't buy it in a store. No, you can't. Down, grounded all within Mother Earth, down. Connected deeply to the roots within us, down. Falling upward to other planets. Falling upward to other planets. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tom, for that song. I'm gonna ask Karen Lee Wild to come play a song. They're just tuning their guitar, and then Lee will finish off with a drumming song.
Those who don't know, Karen Lee Wild will also be your candidate, just start, member of the Parliament, so we can combat homelessness and social decay. God bless. Like your one reference for that breakfast television a few years ago. Just Google it.
I didn't bring an amp here.
Sure. Can I use your cord too? Wasn't sure what he had.
You know, I've known Kevin for a little while, and you know, I don't know where he gets his strength, you know, but God must be giving him some strength. He was up at, he texted me at 2 a.m. He was making sandwiches. So, and you know, this has always been a concern of mine for many years. You know, how do we do this? You know, there's so much development and yet so little for the people that need it most. So, and sometimes when our human minds can't rationalize, we can only go to our higher power, and he'll give us his strength. So I want to encourage people, when you are weak, you have someone strong for you, and that's your higher power. And and also to remember, vengeance is the Lord's, not ours. So we can't, if we're focusing on negative, we can't get the positive working. So we need to be put on the right track. Okay, this song is called "Put Me on the Right Track." This is an original one. Actually, I was part of the Church of God for years ago, and I wrote it back then. And it's on breakfast television, and I hope you enjoy it. Put me on the right track. Don't you ever look back. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Life is just too short now to settle every score now. Take my hand and let it go. Walk the straight and narrow may seem so hard. When I see the other side, when it's not very far. So now put me on a straight line so I can find some peace of mind and walk in heaven's joy. Boom, bam, boom. Well, now put me on the right track. Don't you ever look back. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. Life is just too short now to settle every score now. Take my hand and let it go. Oh, now walk the straight and narrow may seem so hard. But when I see the other side, when it's not very far. So now put me on a straight line so I could find some peace of mind and walk in heaven's joy. Well, now put me on the right track. Thank you. Now I know we don't have a lot of time here because, you know, we might get asked to leave. So I want to do a song we all know that we can all sing together. Thank you very much.
On Evan, ever.
You know, yeah, I once was lost, but now I've found. I was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I found. I was blind, you know a verse, but now I'm down. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. Oh, was grace that got me here this far, and grace will lead me home. Let me hear you singing now. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Yeah, I can hear you now. I once was lost, but now I found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been here 10,000 years, bright shining like the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Let me hear you now. Amazing grace, oh how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I found. I was blind, but now I see. Yeah, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I found. I was blind, but now I see. Yeah, I was blind, but now I see. Thank you guys. You guys sound amazing out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, one more. From Touchy.
One love, one heart. Let's get in together. Rob the bank. Rob the bank. Legally. I show you how. One love, one heart. Let's getting together. Feel alright. Rob the bank. Legally. I show you how. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you so much, Touchy. That was so beautiful. So just before I do the closing song, I just wanted to share a bit about when Sean Boyd passed. He passed away in a tiny home in St. James Park, and I was really sad going to visit that encampment when he passed. I went and brought medicines to go be with people there in the park and support them. And I was really sad to see that, because I know that community well, and the tents had been pushed to be all close to the giant dumpsters. You know, a big park, but the only place people felt that they could camp right up against the dumpsters. And because of that, encampment residents told me that rats had been eating out the bottoms of their tents. And they showed me one man, a Mi'kmaq man from the East Coast, brought me into his tent, and he was heartbroken by Sean's death. He asked me to smudge his tent, so we smudged his tent. It was big enough we could both stand inside, but the bottom I could see had been eaten out by rats. Now the city came. Sean had just died. His belongings hadn't even been taken out of the tiny home. He died of an overdose. And the city insisted on taking the tiny shelter. But the community members didn't want them to. They wanted the tiny shelter because, you know, their tents had been being eaten by rats. It would have been at least off the ground, a little bit safer. And many people had been staying in that tiny shelter. It's you know, it's a safe space that a lot of people access, not just Sean. So the city unfortunately took the tiny home. They brought in a large clearing team, many staff, over a dozen staff, police, you know, city workers, all to take this tiny home and then take it to an incinerator where also Sean's belongings were destroyed. Despite myself and encampment residents and ESN all standing there alongside residents asking for the tiny shelter to stay. So at least the residents, including that Mi'kmaq man, could shelter there with a little bit more safety and privacy than their tents. So it was devastating and heartbreaking to see the tiny home removed. And I had smudged the tiny home. We had prayed over the whole encampment. And yet city staff told me they were taking the tiny home out of respect of the person that had died. But we know how to take care of people when they die. We know that taking their belongings, taking the tiny shelter, that does not console the grieving community at all. We know how to take care of each other ritually, to take care of the space, to prepare the home to be able to be used by somebody else, but that was not given as an option, and Sean's belongings were taken. So with that, you know, we just want to honor him and of course honor Johnny too. Debbie, do you want to say anything else before we close? Okay. Yeah, here. Debbie's Johnny's wife, and she'd like to share.
They took John's clothes too. When he was at the hospital, I don't know where his clothes were. I haven't got a clue where his clothes are. And everything that was personal to him, John kept on his body. So I have nothing of John that he, you know, I'm just a simple rock. All I wanted was his rock that he, you know, and he ended up in the hospital with no clothes. I just want to say something about John. John was a good guy. He had two rules. You don't bug me, and I won't bug you. The other one was, you get me going, you might not turn me off. And John fought for his anger. A lot of his anger was for the injustices that he saw. And he carried these injustices, and he fought for his brothers on the street. And
Right.
he did. He was a fighter. John, if he saw injustice, people searched him out to come and help them with their problems. And I just find it very unfair that the city has kind of just always died, and they just kind of written him off. And there are people here that care about these people. I don't understand how come there's so many John and Jane Does that died in a shelter. Why don't we know their names? They're in a shelter. What? That doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, I like I said the other day when I was here for the memorial for John, above this says fight for the living. And I think Johnny was kind of speaking to me and telling me that, don't let my name die, fight, because that's what he would have done. That's what he did for his other brothers that have died on the street. He tried to find some kind of justice in it all. And it made him angry sometimes. And it was justified anger, a lot of it. And I realize that 52 Division's job is going to be much easier now, but nobody needs to have a phone call with 52 Division the way I had. That was a kick in the face. That really was. That was the day after my husband died. And for 52 Division to celebrate that he had died, it just, things have got to change. These are people. They have families. And Tom was a good guy. If you knew him and took the time to know him, he was a good person, and he's going to be missed. He will be deeply missed. And for all the other people, my heart goes out to their families. For the ones that don't know, the Jane Does and the John Does, my heart goes out to your family. You're at peace now. God will love you. The Creator is there. He will hug you. All that pain and everything that you experienced while you were here, it's gone now. The Creator's got you. Big Witch, thank you. We'll close now with the traveling song, and after the tradition, we're going to start facing the west, and then we'll close in that direction too. And you can join with me for the direction.
So that concludes the homeless memorial for the month of March. Clearly, there's more grief in our community than we are able to express in this short service. And we just encourage that folks continue to release what's in their hearts and join us in our call to action and to change. Each and every month, during COVID, we want to especially thank all of the frontline staff and workers who are out serving the needs of the most vulnerable members of our communities, whether it be folks who are on the streets or folks who are approximately on the streets, because we know this housing crisis is getting much worse. We want to thank all of the nurses, the doctors, the supervised injection site staff, the workers in community organizations, and the folks who are doing the very important work of serving members of our community who are living in encampments. So thank you all very much, and we will be here again next month at noon. There's been many deaths from COVID, yes. Yeah. So thank you very much. That concludes our service for today.